Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm going to be talking about Shrouded Fable, and going to be giving the top 10 best cards. Shrouded Fable is a mini set, and it's coming very, very soon, in only a few days, and I'm so excited. It's going to have, honestly, a bunch of really cool cards, and then next month we'll be getting Stellar Crown, which is a full set, but Shrouded Fable is just a mini set, but still has a bunch of really good cards. The top two cards in this list are insane. I mean, they're going to be they're really good. They're going to see a lot of play. Specifically, the top one is going to be in a lot of decks, and the second one will be in a bunch as well. But the other eight, you can really mix and match. There are cards not on this list that are okay that you could mention and comment those down below once you're done watching this video, because I'm interested in hearing what cards you think should have been on this list and how you'd reorder this list as well. But let's just start things off with Genesect from, of course, Shrouded Fable, which has its ability Ace Nullifier. And by the way, I believe these are the official cards. I'm getting them from PokeBeach. But Ace Nullifier, if this Pokemon has a Pokemon tool attached, your opponent can't play any Ace Spec cards from their hand. It does have an attack, but that doesn't really matter. It's pretty underwhelming to bad. It has 110 HP, which is also not very good. It could be worse, certainly, but it's okay. And then you have one issue, which is actually really nice because you need a tool on you. And that tool can be Rescue Board. It could be some other tool, but I don't really know what the other tool would be. It would probably be Rescue Board. You put Rescue Board on Genesect, now it's a pivot, and it also is stopping your opponent from playing their ace specs, and it does let you play your ace specs, which is nice. There was a Spiritomb, which said this was quite a while ago, but Spiritomb had, oh, by the way, Limitless, which is this other database I'm using, recently added all the old cards, which is pretty cool. Or they have most of the cards at the very least. But Spiritomb with the ability Sealed Scream, each player can't play any ace spec cards from their hand. So that, obviously it didn't need a tool, but also it stops you. So Genesect, I think, is really nice. And it's only useful in certain scenarios, right? It's really only useful on one turn of the whole game. But on that turn, it can be super insanely good. Unfair Stamp and Prime Catcher are probably the most notable ace specs that can really destroy you, the person who's being targeted by the ace spec, the opponent. So that can be really rough. Things like Secret Box is pretty strong. There are some new ace specs, but they're not on this list. But the Secret Box is pretty solid. Legacy Energy is really good, but this won't really be. It's not stopping it in Lugia Archeops usually, but in certain scenarios it kind of can. I'm trying to think what other ace specs see play. I mean, Hyperoma sees play. Hyperoma Secret Box are like okay, but really you're here to stop Unfair Stamp and Prime Catcher, which can really swing the game drastically in your opponent's favor. Now this is stopping that and stop your opponent from playing them. Oh, also some of the tools it'll stop that. But if the tools are already in play, it's not going to stop it. But I think Genesect is super solid. It's an easy one of attack if you're running Rescue Board, and lots of decks are running Arven. Rescue Board's super good, and having pivots is nice. Pivots are Pokemon that have free retreat. That's not exactly true. We'll talk about something else later. But generally, they're Pokemon that have free retreat, allowing you to send them up and not have to worry about sending up the right Pokemon when your active is knocked out. And Genesect can do that. It's just a really solid Pokemon. Not amazing. I don't know how much play it will see. It might not end up seeing much play, but I think it has the potential to. Next, we have Dartrix. Dartrix is pretty interesting with the United Wings attack. This card's going to see a lot of play. I imagine on the ladder, I'm going to play the ladder when the new set drops, and I'm sure I'm going to see Dartrix all the time with United Wings. It has an attack that does called United Wings, which is the most important thing, and it does 20 damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile with United Wings. And if you don't know, there are 3 other Pokemon with this attack, and you can play 4 of each Pokemon. So you can have technically 16 United Wings Pokemon in the discard pile. I just want to give a bit of a PSA right now about Pokemon TCG Live. Ditto, which copies Pokemon from the discard. It's really good in United Wings, but I don't believe it works correctly in Pokemon TCG Live. Or rather, I don't know. I think it like softlocks the game. It's don't play it. I don't know if it'll be fixed when the new set drops, but presumably not. They did patch notes, which might not have everything they did, but they didn't mention Ditto, so it's probably not getting fixed, unfortunately. But anyway, with that out of the way, United Wings is really solid. On standard, it's kind of underwhelming, but also this allows you to do 80 more damage, which is a lot more damage. So you can be hitting technically 320, but really not 320. You're probably hitting in the 200s, though, but you're hitting 200s more consistently. You can hit a turn 1. You can also attack with Dartrix. Murkrow, one of the Pokemon attack. It's a basic. The other 3 are all basics, by the way, so they're easier and faster to attack with. but Murkrow is one darkness, so you of course need darkness energy, and then the other two, which are Wattrel and Flamigo, are both two colorless energies, and Flamigo does have more HP than Dartrix, but the other two don't, so there's pros and cons to all of them. Flamigo has an ability, Murkrow, Dartrix, and Wattrel all hit different weaknesses, but there's pros and cons to each of them, so you could put a Rowlet into your deck, maybe even multiple Rowlets to evolve into Dartrix to attack with that. Rowlets tend to have low HP. I'm not actually sure. The new one has 70. There were definitely some in standard. Um, why is this not English? There we go. Yeah, there's one currently in standard as well with 70 HP, but 70 is okay, I guess. It allows you to survive Dragon Ball EX's snipe attack, but you might be getting knocked out if they play Hawlucha. But anyways, Dartrix is pretty solid. United Wings is like kind of mediocre, I predict, because it's a single prize deck, and single prize decks that don't have a lot of versatility generally aren't that good. They can be okay if they're able to one-shot two prizers, even if you're two-shotting them all the time and you're consistent, then that's good. But United Wings isn't going to be so consistent. It's a deck that builds up in the late game, but it could end up being pretty solid. I think it'll be okay. Like, probably fringe top 10 deck is where I expect it to be, but that's pretty much all thanks to Dartrix for the new card. And I think Dartrix is really cool. I know it's really popular as well, and it's solid. Next we have Colress' Tenacity. This is one of the cards that's probably the hardest to rank. It says it's a supporter card. You can play one supporter each turn. And it says search your deck for a stadium and an energy and reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And so, oh, and by the way, I did do a ranking all the cards in the set, but my rankings probably changed some. And now that we're closer to seeing the cards, we've seen them in play more in Japan. I have a better idea now. And yeah, so, and these are also the best cards, so you don't need to listen to me talk about like the cards that aren't good. Colress' Tenacity, though, a Stadium is okay. Stadiums are okay right now. In the next expansion, they're going to be really good, but this is a ranking for right now. So I guess this card will be really solid next expansion, because or the next main expansion, Stellar Crown, because there's an absolutely absurdly, there's a Stadium that's kind of broken, but there is Neutral Center, which is an A-spec, which is solid. It's interesting. It's kind of weird. But then the big thing here is the energy card. Keep in mind, you can get Artizone off of the Stadium, which is like solid. So it is still Pokemon Search. But then you do have an energy card, which can be a special energy card, but doesn't have to be. So if you're playing a deck like, I don't know, special energies aren't actually that good right now outside of Double Turbo Energy, but Double Turbo Energy is pretty good. So let's just say United Wings. So you're playing United Wings, and you need to grab yourself. Oh, by the way, Pokestop's also good, but that's not so reliable. But you can go Colress' Tenacity and grab yourselves Pokestop and Double Turbo Energy in United Wings, and then go and then like use those cards. It's not necessarily as good as Research, but it might be better, and it guarantees you the special energy. You can do that off of Luminion V as well. Or some other card. Again, in the new expansion, Stellar Crown, we are going to get a Knockdown, which will help this card some more. It's definitely a card that you should probably pick up if you're interested in playing some of the like new decks from Stellar Crown. But even right now, it's okay. Just being able to guarantee search the special energy is really nice. We saw the card Guzma and Hala, notably in Expanded, it's okay. When it was in Standard, and they're similar. It got a tool as well, but discarded cards a little different, but similar concepts. In Expanded, it's pretty good. It's not. It's good. But then when it was in Standard, it was somewhat underwhelming. And then in GLC, which is the same card pool as Expanded, it's really good. So I think Colress' Tenacity is going to be like okay in Standard with a smaller card pool, but it depends. And there's Legacy Energy, which is a really good A spec. Of course, you can't be getting Legacy Energy and like Neutral Center or whatever, but this could be nice. Oh, if you're playing Duo Upper Energy and you're Dragon Ball EX, you could play Colress' Tenacity. That might be something you want. So, there are some use cases of this. I haven't thought them through too much, but it's a solid supporter. Next, we have Binding Mochi. This is an interesting card. It says attacks used by poison Pokemon. This card is attached to you, do 40 more damage to your opponent's active. There are a few different ways to poison. There's Brute on it, and there are some new cards coming in this set for specifically Darkness Pokemon. But Binding Mochi is pretty solid. It just, 40 more damage when you're attacking is really good. 10 more is not so good. There's a card right now that does 10 more, and it's pretty bad. But then if you have 20 more, that would be really good, or at least really solid. There was a card that did 20 more quite a while ago. But that was a muscle band. It was really good. And then if you are able to do 30 more, that's pretty insane. We've seen that a lot, but like situationally, this is 40 more, so that's pretty insane. And will help with math. It depends what deck you're playing. I think it's good in Charizard EX specifically, as well as the new Loyal 3 deck, which uses it's was it? It's Okidogi and Mukidori, and then Pecharunt. Pecharunt's not like part of the Loyal 3, but the Fezandipiti EX is a good card, and we will actually maybe be talking about that in today's video. But the Pecharunt is really the key to the Loyal 3 and allows you to use Binding Mochi, and we'll talk about that next. And Pecharunt EX here has its ability subjugating chains, which says once during your turn, you may switch one of your bench darkness Pokemon, except Pecharunt EX for whatever reason, with your active. And if you do, the new active is now poisoned. You can't use more than one of this ability per turn for whatever reason. Also, by the way, is it just me or is this ability kind of hard to read? I don't know, but you can switch in. This does a lot of different things. One, Binding Mochi here that we just talked about, 40 more for poison Pokemon. This allows you to poison really easily. It does take up a bench spot, but it's not that big of a deal, especially in a deck like. I guess it does matter in the decks that plays that they're going to play it, which are Charizard EX, and then the deck, the Loyal 3 deck. But it's okay. I mean, you get okay value out of it, and so you're able to switch in and use the Binding Mochi card to do extra damage, and Charizard EX really wants the extra damage. The Loyal 3 deck does not mind it. It's certainly solid, but the damage and math in that deck's it's kind of weird, but it's solid. And you have a bunch of different options. So Pecharunt EX triggering Binding Mochi certainly could be very useful. And then, of course, it does allow you to, if you're using Darkness Pokemon that aren't like literally any Darkness Pokemon other than Charizard EX, aka anyone that uses Darkness Energy, it's probably on the bench when you use Dark Patch to it. So then, I mean, it is if you're using Dark Patch. You can use other forms of Energy Acceleration. If you're doing Roaring Moon EX, you might be using Professor Sawdust Vitality, but you might be using Dark Patch as well. And so you could then have Roaring Moon EX on the bench, Dark Patch, Sawdust Vitality, Pecharunt EX it into the active. Be very careful. It does damage itself a lot. It damages itself 200. It has 230 HP. There is the tool card, Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, which will allow you to just not be poisoned, which is nice, but you might not necessarily want to do that. You might not have it, but Pecharunt EX can switch in the Roaring Moon EX to allow you to just actually attack and to not have to worry about having the Pokemon with Dark Patch be switched into the active. And then you could also use this to counter Snorlax. Snorlax is arguably the best deck in the game right now, and it's actually really, really, it's really hard to deal with for like Charizard and some dark deck, mostly Charizard. Charizard can struggle against Snorlax. There are counters in the form of Professor Turo's Scenario or Penny, or there might be other cards like it, Scoop Up Cyclone as well. But then there is the Milotic, which is a counter to the counters, which then just shuts those other things off. It gets a little complicated, but long story short, Charizard can struggle against Snorlax, but Pecharunt can just stop that. Then it's essentially it's an auto win, yeah. And so you can Pecharunt EX your Charizard EX into the active and just attack. No matter what your opponent does, you can, if they gust up literally anything other than, of course, Charizard itself, which then you don't need to switch. You can just switch Charizard EX into the active, start attacking. Nothing to worry about. They're not going to be out here ability locking you. If they are, then you can just retreat because they're ability locking you by putting some other Pokemon in the active. So Pecharunt EX is super good for that. And it's also it's a solid attacker. You rotate Outburst here for 2 darkness. It does 60 damage to each prize card your opponent's taken. This is okay. You do have 190 HP, which is kind of low. You do have 1 retreat, but the low HP here is a bit of an issue because you're not like a great attacker. It's probably a late game attacker as well. So if your opponent's taken if they've taken somewhere between 4 and 5 prizes, then you're just gonna get knocked out if you attack, and then you'll lose unless you're winning the game with Irritated Outburst. And yes, 300 for 2 darkness is really good at the end of the game, but if it's not winning the game, that's an issue. And you can't Pecharunt EX yourself into the active, so you can't Binding Mochi, but it's still a solid attack. And then you also have the fact, I mentioned pivots earlier. You could say, be playing Charizard EX, and then you could, oftentimes you send a Pidgeot EX, but you could send up a Pokemon like, say, Tatsugiri, which wants to be in the active and do stuff. You could do this with Lost Zone as well, but that seems a little, I don't know if that's any good, but you could send up you could send up your Tatsugiri, you could send up some other Pokemon, but probably Tatsugiri, and then you use its ability, and then you might not be able to retreat it because you might not have U-turn board. Then you can just use Pecharunt's ability to send it to the active. There are a few other Pokemon like that. That's an okay use of it. It's pretty good, but also there is U-turn board, so you could use that instead, and that might be better. But I think Pecharunt EX is really, really solid. Has a bunch of different use cases, and it depends on the meta, really. But I think it is a really good card. Moving to the fifth best card, and then the fourth best card, which are going to be Dusknoir and Dusclops. These are really together. You could technically play them separately, and if you did, you would be playing Dusclops probably without Dusknoir. Maybe not, though. If you're playing Charizard, you might just play Dusknoir, but you're probably playing both, let's be honest. And they have the same ability, Cursed Blast here. When it's in your turn, you may put a certain amount of damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if you do, this Pokemon's knocked out. Dusknoir, the stage 2, puts 13 damage counters, and Dusclops, the stage 1, does 5 damage counters. They have attacks, but they're kind of useless. They have retreat costs. That doesn't really matter. They have HP. Like, none of their stats matter except for the fact that they're evolutions and they have these abilities. By the way, Dusclops, it's like absurd and expanded, but whatever. Dusknoir, though, is really, really powerful. Essentially 130 snipe is a lot. I mean, Dragon Ball EX, it does 60 snipe, and then the Dusclops does 50 snipe, essentially. Dusknoir 130 snipe, so, really strong here. You are knocking yourselves out, and you are needing to get these Pokemon into play as well. But once you do that, this allows you to really destroy your opponent's setup. It's a really interesting card to play, I think. I've not played with it yet. I mean, the cards aren't out, but they are potentially really insane and really, really powerful. But they're kind of sketchy as well. You are knocking yourself out. You need to be very careful when playing them. But if you're able to use them well, you can really destroy your opponent's board, and they won't be able to recover ever. Because if you're and you're playing standard, you probably play 2 Pokemon so that if one of them gets knocked out, you have the other one. Maybe against like a spread deck, you might even play 3, but that's awkward. You can't play 3 of 3 different Pokemon. That's just not possible. So if you need to do something like that, you just can't. You probably don't even play all those Pokemon. So, this is forcing, but even if they do put 3 Pokemon to play, you can technically knock them all out. But I'm not exactly sure how good these are going to be. I think they're pretty good. I know some people think these cards are insane and going to like break the game. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think they're pretty good. I think they will break the game and expanded. But Dusclops, is going to be out here just sniping stuff before you can really do anything about it in Dusknoir as well. So Dusknoir, I think, is going to be played in Charizard decks and maybe Dragon Ball decks, and then Dusclops as well. But then you could put Dusclops in Lost Zone decks as well with Lost. Lost City. So you can do some pretty interesting things there as well. But these cards, I mean, they're just free damage. No, they're not free damage. They are extra damage. And if you're able to essentially win the game using these, then it doesn't matter the fact that you're giving up prize cards. By the way, they don't work with Legacy Energy. If any of you are wondering, Legacy Energy says you give up 1 less prize card. However, it says only when it's knocked out by damage from an attack. Interestingly, if you have the card Luxurious Cape, which I didn't actually realize before, but that one's also if you're knocked out by damage from an attack. So if you knock yourself out with Luxurious Cape, it doesn't matter, doesn't really matter for these, but it could be interesting in other cases. The number 3 card here, though, I have Kyurem. This one I might be overrating a little, but I think it's really good. Plasma Bane is your ability. If your opponent has any cards in this card with Colress in their name, this Pokemon can use the Triforce attack for only 1 colorless energy, and that attack says discard all energy from this Pokemon, and it does 110 to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, and it is very expensive. You're not really paying this ever, maybe in Lost Zone, Hisuian Goodra V-Star, but even then it's 2 Mirage Gates plus an attachment for a turn, and then you discard all the energy, so it's probably not happening, but Trifrost is really powerful if it's only 1 colorless, and so if your opponent's playing Lost Zone, then they probably have Colress Experiment in the discard pile. You just cure them, you just destroy their board. Assuming they don't have Manaphy in play. They might have Manaphy, but now they have to play Manaphy all the time. You can potentially exploit that. I mean, this Kyurem is really good against Lost Zone anyways, because even if they do have Manaphy in play, it's still 110 damage for only 1 colorless energy, and it has 130 HP. Cramorant is a really solid Pokemon in Lost Zone, and that has 110 HP, and you need 4 cards in the Lost Zone, and it does 110 damage. And so this isn't directly better than that. It certainly has downsides, but it's still pretty solid against Lost Zone, even if they do have Manaphy in play. It's not great. It might not be good enough, but it might be. And it's a nice option even if they do have Manaphy. Of course, though, the idea would be to gust up Manaphy and then just destroy their board. So this card's really good against Lost Zone. Also, other decks playing either Colress's Experiment or Colress's Tenacity, the new supporter card, which is also part of the reason why Colress's Tenacity was somewhat low on the list. You're putting a target on your back for Kyurem, and this is something you never want to have to deal with, as I said, even if you do have Manaphy. So Kyurem is going to be just like super rough to deal with. And then also Regidraco V-Star, which can copy Dragon Pokemon. Now, you don't want to discard all your energy. It's not great. However, if you're doing 110 to 3, that's really rough. Again, your opponent could Manaphy, but force him to Manaphy. You can then target that with Dragapult. You can do different things. So Kyurem can do a lot of things. It's really scary. 110 to 3 is just super brutal. It's not quite as brutal right now because, of course, Manaphy and then also Terra Pokemon, which are immune to bench damage, but it's still not great. And so Kyurem is just doing 330. 330 damage. It's spread, so it's not just single target, which means it's arguably a little worse, but still, Kyurem is like it's really good, right? Kyurem is going to be out here just it's going to be cooking some Lost Zone decks. I think it's really good. I'm excited to play it. I'm excited to see what it's going to be doing. And I don't think it'll like break the game, but I think it's really strong. But then the top two cards, number 2 is Fezandipiti EX. This card's just really simply good. Flip the Script is the ability. Once during your turn, if any of your Pokemon were knocked out last turn, you can draw 3 cards, and you can't use more than one Flip the Script ability each turn. Oricorio GX and Expanded has the same ability, except it's a different name, so you can use both, but anyways, drawing 3 cards is good. Radiant Greninja is a really good card. This is similar. It's a 2-prizer. It does have an attack, 100 for 3 colorless snipe, which is okay, certainly not like amazing, but it has uses. And 210 HP also is pretty high. Comparing it to something like Squawkabilly EX, which is a 2-prizer, that is a really good support Pokemon, arguably the best 2-prize support Pokemon in the game. Lumineon V is good, Rotom V is good, but Squawkabilly EX is also really good. That has 160 HP. It's just getting messed up by a lot of different things. Fezandipiti EX hopefully isn't going to have that happen. It's the same HP as say Tealmass Ogerpon EX. Any of the Ogerpon EXs, and probably some other things I'm not thinking of. But, Fezandipiti EX, 210 HP is nice. The attack is nice. One Retreat is nice. But, we're here for the ability. The ability is really nice. If you're playing a single prize deck, this is so good because it's allowing you to draw potentially 15 cards throughout the course of the game, which is so many. That's just kind of absurd. You don't need that, but then you also could just use this in really any deck. If you're playing Raging Bull Ogerpon, you can only use this ability twice, but that's still 6 cards, which is still a bunch. And this is really good, especially in the format with Iono. Your opponent's going to Iono you, but then your Fezandipiti, you actually just essentially draw out of it, which is nice. It's not like broken, but it's pretty good, and I think Fezandipiti EX is going to see so much play in so many decks. I think it's pretty clearly the second best card from the set, but the best card is it's Night Stretcher, right? Night Stretcher, it's an item card. Put a Pokemon or basic energy card from your discard pile into your hand. You just get, something that you need back into your hand. It's really nice. Admittedly, there are some counters, so maybe it won't be quite as good as I think. There's Toadschool, but it's still really good, right? Super Rod, it's one of the best cards in Standard right now. I think it's top 5 based on play rate. I don't remember though, but it's played a lot, right? And it recovers stuff. Night Stretchers like Super Rod, they have pros and cons. Super Rod recovers more, but they go into the deck, and generally you want the cards just straight in your hand, but Night Stretcher is still really good, right? Night Stretcher is definitely going to be a staple card. Fezandipiti is like kind of a staple card. This is definitely a straight staple card. I would be shocked if this doesn't see play in at least 25% of the I don't know. We'll see. Because Super Rod and Night Stretcher are like competing some, but there's, Night Stretcher, it's really good. This is definitely a card you want. You might not want it in every deck, but you'll want it in a lot of decks. It's certainly a consideration in every deck, because every deck's playing Pokemon or Energy. So, Night Stretcher, just a really good card. And the only way to recover Pokemon straight to your hand that I can think of, I'm sure there's some way that I'm not thinking of, but this card's really good. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell. Comment down below your thoughts as well. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.